Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to give the waiting room just a couple minutes for everyone to join us, and then we'll get started. Okay, looks like the group is all filed in, so we'll go ahead and start the session. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Sarah Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Membership here at ASABE. And our speaker today is Travis Gunamori. Travis has been involved with research and development in academia and industry, product development, standards development, and maintenance, and full product compliance for Kubota. He's involved in many North American and international industry associations and organizations, as well as Kubota's Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. Today, as you can see from his title, he'll be discussing careers in the off-road equipment industry. Thank you so much, Travis.
Thanks, Sarah. Thank you, everyone, for joining. It doesn't look like it's a huge group, but that's fine. Hopefully, you'll get something out of this. Just a little bit more detail introduction on myself. So right now I work for Kubota North America, and I'm responsible, my group is responsible for product compliance for all North American products. And then, of course, feeding back information to our parent company in Japan. I got my Bachelor of Science in Biosystems Engineering at Oklahoma State, as well as a master's. I have worked as a research engineer for Oklahoma State while I was getting my master's degree. I've been a R&D engineer on advanced combine development for Phoenix International, one of the John Deere companies. I spent about 15 years at ASABE in the standards department as a technical services support engineer. And then I've been at Kubota now for almost 8 years. In fact, tomorrow it will be 8 years. Started out as a compliance engineer and moved to senior compliance engineer and then manager of our R&D department, which is mostly product compliance, and then recently transitioned to product compliance for all of North America. Have a small team here, a couple of engineers working for me, supporting basically all of our North American companies on product compliance. So had a little bit of like Sarah mentioned in the intro, I've done some academic research work and, papers and working on electronics and advanced development and standards work and product compliance work. So and a little bit of design work in there as well when I was at Phoenix International. So had the chance to work on a lot of different types of jobs within the industry. I'm going to throw a few quotes in here just to kind of a little bit of fun, a little bit of hopefully get something out of it. I like this one. Education is what you get when you read the fine print, but experience is what you get when you don't. I always joke that it's only half joking. The reason I'm good at my product compliance job is because I've done a lot of the stupid things you're not supposed to do. And I've managed to live to tell the tale. I have all 10 fingers and all 10 toes. And so, I've lived through it, but I've learned from a lot of the things that I shouldn't have done as well. Learn from things other people do and learn from things that I've done that I shouldn't have done. So, one of the questions I get a lot of times about for people in this industry is what should they do for higher education, right? So, I'm going to probably focus more on the engineering type things here, but it doesn't matter whether it's engineering, technology, engineering management, systems management, or in the case of business or legal or patents or whatever else it is you might want to do from an education standpoint. The lessons I've learned, I think, are applicable across. But it doesn't matter, right? So we have a place in our industry for engineers. We have a place in our industry for technology majors, management majors. It all impacts our products and our business, our dealers, our customers, that sort of the end users. So there's a place for all of that. It just really depends on what your skill set is, what your strengths are, what you want to do with your career. The same goes for what type of a degree. So if you're thinking about engineering, is it an ag or biological degree? Do you want to get a straight mechanical degree, electrical degree, computer engineering, software, some other industrial engineering from a manufacturing standpoint? It's all useful, right? So we have work in our industry for all of these types of majors. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I'm an ag engineer, so I'm kind of biased towards that degree major. But we hire mechanical engineers, we hire electrical engineers, we hire non-technical people to work in our engineering group to support the activities that we do. So just because you don't have an engineering degree doesn't mean that we can't find, it doesn't mean that you're not useful to our industry. Another question I get is about advanced degrees. Do you need a master's? No, I don't need a master's for the work that I do. I chose to do that when I chose to do it right out of my bachelor's degree. It's not required. Is it useful? Sometimes. Is a PhD useful? Sometimes. It depends on the work that you're going to do, the type of responsibilities that you're going to have. An advanced degree in business like an MBA, it can be useful in certain situations. A management type of degree, if you're going to manage people, it can be useful. It's not required. Sometimes your company will help you get there. You can always go back later and get another degree if you choose, if your company supports it, or if it supports your new career path that you might find you maybe want to switch mid-career and do something different. You can always go back later and do it. Again, not required, but certainly can be useful. Before we get into the career stuff, I often get asked about candidate interviews and what do I look for in a candidate when I'm hiring somebody into our off-road equipment industry. I'll tell you, I've never checked a transcript ever. I've never asked anybody about their GPA until long after they've been hired in. It's never been an influencing factor in whether I'm going to hire them or not, because I assume if they've graduated from an accredited engineering program that they have that basic knowledge and the basic toolkit, right? So the soft skills are very important. We were just talking as we were getting ready for this presentation, things about the ability to write a coherent email, the ability to communicate. Your resume, well, it's not the only deciding factor. If your resume looks terrible and you don't have that ability to put words to paper or electronic paper, so to speak, then that can very much be a deciding factor in whether you're even considered for the job or not. So that's another one that I look at personally. I'll look at the resume, not just for what the content on there, but I'll also look at how it's laid out and does it look like it flows? Is there some logic to how it's put together? The other soft skills that you can develop over time, but certainly would be good to show in an interview, is your ability to communicate, your ability to look people in the eye when you're talking to them, to understand the question and really think about it before you answer. Don't just rush right into an answer and not answer the actual question. So little things that get picked up on during the interview process that maybe aren't necessarily taught in school. So things like that. Work ethic is very difficult to evaluate. Of course, everybody's going to tell you they're a hard worker, etc. But we look, some of the questions and the way we phrase questions and the answers we're looking for oftentimes are an indicator of work ethic, and then a passion for the off-road equipment, right? So I'm talking about working in the off-road equipment industry. I want to make sure somebody actually really wants to work on tractors and construction equipment and mowers and implements and sprayers and harvesting equipment. I want to make sure they really like this business, because that means that they're likely to stick with the company and want to contribute to it. Some of the other things we do, and we do a couple of things here that are a little unusual, maybe from an interview standpoint, but I think they're very useful. We will ask some perhaps off the wall questions, and then we also take people down into our shop and we have them operate some equipment while some of us are observing and watching. So we do that for two reasons. One is we can kind of get a gauge of someone's personality and their thought process. Is there some logic behind their answer? Is there some logic behind their activities and learning how to operate equipment down in our shop? So we do that intentionally, and that is to understand how people are going to potentially work as well. That really helps us get an understanding of how they're going to work potentially. So just some thoughts that, again, the coursework and the GPA are usually pretty low on my list. I don't really care. Honestly, I care if somebody wants to work on this equipment, and I care about their thought process and their ability to reason things out and have a reason for doing things. One of our former ASAE standards directors, Russ Hahn, used to tell us when I first started at ASABE was it takes 35 years of experience to get 35 years of experience. And I know a lot of times we want to do a shortcut. We want to go straight to the top. We want to get a management job right away, but you really kind of have to, there are careers and there are tools now that allow more rapid advancement than there used to be maybe in the past, but at the same time, there really isn't a substitute for experience. So what happens when you're in your early career and you're starting out, right? So you can have a different approach to how you want to do it. You might have a goal. You might say, I want to be a director of engineering, or you might want to say, well, I want to manage people, or I want to manage projects, or I want to be, the premier designer of XYZ type of a machine, right? So you have a goal. Maybe you know what that goal is. You're dead set on it. It's never going to change. And you might need to move around to get there, right? So maybe you might move within a company. You start at one location or one job, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute here. But and you may need to switch companies to get there. That just depends on what your goal is. Some people would rather go into a company and work for a while and then figure it out, right? So you like the company, you can stay and build a career there. Or you think, well, this company's okay, but maybe I want to work for a different company. I've been exposed to them through, competitor research or a professional organization or trade shows. And boy, they just look like a really good company to work for. So you can do that, right? You can go find another company to work for, keeping your eyes open. But it doesn't matter whether you want to stay within your company or move to another company. The best way to advance that career as you start out is to build a network. So you build a network within your company, your own management, your peers, people who have been with the company for a little while longer, people in other departments. Sometimes they can help you progress in your career because they're going to tell perhaps your management, hey, this is a good employee. They help me out. They support the company goals. You're going to have peers in other companies, whether you can get in touch with them through professional societies, personal contacts, within your actual regional geographic area, your city, your town, whatever. Perhaps it's your classmates and your friends from college or even high school, and they're in a career that's similar or a company that's similar. You build that network up, and then you can grow and progress in your career, whichever way you want to do it. Again, whether it's within your company or with another company, and utilizing all these tools in this network to grow both professionally, so becoming a better employee, a better engineer, advancing into management or project management or whatever it is you want to do, and then also your personal growth as well. So things to think about in your early career from my perspective. As far as your career itself goes, right? Finding out what you want to do, what you like to do, and getting somebody to pay you to do it. I happen to like tractors and off-road equipment and implements and tearing up the ground and digging holes and all kinds of things like that. So I'm lucky enough to work for a company that pays me to do it, and I think that's a pretty good gig in my opinion. But utilizing that then to grow your career, right? So what's your passion? Is if you're like mine is tractors and growing things and construction and building things. So I happen to like it. What am I good at? I happen to be pretty good at product compliance. So I'm lucky enough to have a company that pays me to do that. Things that I value. So maybe you value maybe you're really interested in working on a particular type of equipment, right? You really like tractors, or you really like engines, or you really like combine harvesters. So you can find a career and grow in your career to do that. Again, whether within a company or between companies. Um, Maybe you value your company culture more. Maybe you think about the corporate goals and values, the people that are within the company is more important to you than the type of equipment. So you find that company that has that aligns with the culture that you want to have, the leadership, the behaviors within the company goals, things like that. Maybe you're more interested in the type of work. Well, you only want to do testing work, or you only want to do advanced R&D. Um, you can become an expert in that. So let's say you want to do advanced R&D and you go work for a company that makes electronic control systems for tractors. And then you get to a certain point in there and you say, well, I still want to do even more advanced R&D. Man, I want to get into artificial intelligence and autonomy. And so you parlay that desire for that type of work into maybe a new company or a startup or a consulting gig, right? So there's a lot of different ways to utilize the particular type of work you want to do to grow your career. So then you take those, once perhaps you've decided which one of those you value the most, and you find a company that helps you get there, right? To follow that passion, match the corporate culture, match the product or the type of equipment, do the work that you want to do, and use that to grow. If you want to grow from testing to design to advanced R&D and then into manufacturing or QA or product compliance or whatever, you can grow from job to job depending on what your passion is. And along that line, basically, I think allowing yourself to evolve can really help. Whether it's because you have a career progression that you want to do, or you found something else that you think is interesting, or if you're feeling kind of stagnant in your own job, then you look within the company for other things to do, or sometimes you can look outside the company. I would argue not too often. I'll mention that a little bit here in a second too, but looking to ensure that you're not feeling stagnant within your job and expand the role within your job. You can always take on additional things to expand your job, and then perhaps it allows you to evolve, whether it's continuing to grow or maybe even transition to another position. So career growth can take on a lot of different forms. Speaking of changing jobs, then, a lot of times people will get to a certain point in their career and they'll go, oh, I want to change jobs. There's a lot of reasons for it, right? You can do it because you want to advance. You want to go from a engineer 1 to an engineer 2 to a senior to a manager to a team, or from the team lead and then to a manager and then director, whatever it is you want to do. That may be a reason to change jobs. You may want to change companies because suddenly you decide, well, this company that I'm working for now, the culture doesn't align with my values, or we're going in a direction and I don't like the way the company's going. I don't see it as sustainable. So I need to get out, right? There's reasons to do it. Sometimes you don't like the people you're with. Sometimes you just need to do it to get more pay. It can happen. That's part of the things to consider whether you're going to change jobs. But I would say again, how often you do that, how often you look for that opportunity is going to depend on your career goals and those reasons up above. And then one thing to consider is future employers. A pretty big red flag, in my opinion, is still frequent job jumping. So if someone I actually saw something the other day where you kind of have to look at the reasons why they change jobs. If you're an employer, if someone is changing jobs every 6 months or every year or even every 2 years, that can be a red flag depending on the reasons. It seems like maybe they're just looking to advance their career, and then you won't have them for very long, so you might want to consider that. But if somebody has had the same job for 18 years and they've never advanced and they've never changed titles or job descriptions, then you wonder about you might wonder about their ability. And so again, you have to kind of look at it both as an employee and as a future and potential employer. You look at the reasons why those jobs were changed. Contractors would be another potential sort of a legitimate reason for frequent job changes, right? So if you're a contractor or you're working through an agency and you're working on a job and the job ended, then you have to move to another job and another one and another one. And so, if there's good reasons for it, then it's fine. But you have to consider that when you're looking at how often you change jobs or you make a decision to change a job. As you change jobs, of course, you're gonna take on leadership positions. My Dave Coffin is one of my former bosses, and he basically said everyone can be a leader, even within a project or a task. So you don't have to be a manager or a director or a team lead or have some other title to be a leader, right? You can lead by example. You can demonstrate leadership within tasks and projects. If you do want to get that title or a position that's a leadership type of position, those will come. If your ability to lead is recognized by your management, then the positions will come to you as well. And of course, that comes typically with pay raise, obviously. This is my opinion. I'll just throw this out there that our sort of look at me culture of maybe doesn't really demonstrate true leadership. And this is my opinion. A true leader doesn't tell everybody how great they are. They just demonstrate the leadership. But one thing you do need to make sure is that if you're showing leadership and you feel like you're not being recognized for it, you at least need to make sure your direct management understands the work that you're doing so that they can communicate your abilities for your own advancement. Just something I think is kind of important to understand. Not necessarily going and telling everybody, "Oh, I'm a leader. Oh, I'm great," but showing them and making sure that your direct management knows what you're doing. If you're in a management position, this is sort of my philosophy. I will never ask my employees to do anything that I'm unwilling to do, whether that's a task, something, an unpleasant report that you have to write, or physical labor or anything of that nature. I will not ask them to do something that I won't do myself. I will sit down with them and help them do it. I will just go out and do it myself and then show them that, okay, this is something that needs to be done. I feel like, again, that need to lead by example is something that we should consider if we're going to try to be a leader. So that's just kind of, again, my philosophy. Kind of switching gears here a little bit. And I know this is about careers in off-road equipment. So in my opinion, sort of these are the things going on right now and things that we need to think about, again, whether we're growing our career, we're going to get into a leadership position, what skill sets we need to continue to develop within our own selves for our own jobs and our own careers. Right now, there's a lot of trends going on. We got obviously things in technology, right? We've got artificial intelligence, automation and autonomy, data, electronics, and then there's a lot of things going on in powertrain design, right? Electrification, fuel choices, like alternative fuels, things like that. And this is these technologies that are evolving right now are going to lead to different things like equipment size or maybe even the type or the operation, right? So it's going to allow autonomy may allow a bigger or a smaller piece of equipment, depending on what your needs are for the application, right? And it's also going to change the timing and the duty cycles and the efficiency. So if you have an autonomous tractor, it might be able to run 24/7 because you don't have to have an operator who gets tired and needs a break and needs meals and so forth. But that may then trickle down to influence things like your powertrain choice or your fuel choice. If you've got a small electric machine that's going to run 24/7, it's going to need to stop and recharge. So it may be faster and more efficient to run a combustion engine, for example, just a potential thought. Other option could be to do it as a fleet, where you would have maybe 1/3 or 2/3 of your vehicles out in the field at any time, and 1/3 is charging if they're electric, or refueling or resupplying or whatever. So the technology trends are going to change potentially, at least in my opinion. I think they're going to change the types of products that we're going to see on the market. There's also things that operate a little bit like a tractor, right? So they have some tractive force or traction system, and they have a lot of different things that they can do. They can spray, they can till, they can plant, they can do all these things, but they don't look like a traditional tractor. So there's a lot of things going on out there that are just a little different than what we're used to seeing. And I think these technology trends are only going to continue to increase that. Other things we have to consider while we're looking at future technologies and powertrains and things of that nature, maybe the location, right? So something that works really well in a small sort of local or regional area might not work in another region. I'll use my parent company for example. A small tractor that works in a rice paddy near a town in Japan may not work out in remote North Dakota, just because in order to get the fuel to it, for example, might be a challenge, or the ability to cover enough ground on a large property may be completely different than the ability to till up a small rice paddy, for example. So a lot of different things are going to happen here, and I think we're going to see a very widespread number of types of products out there. Some of the challenges we have that the technology will help with, but it may also it causes some opportunities for us to innovate. The ability to access resources, right? So raw materials, water, of course, is going to be one of the big challenges. So whether that's on the production side or utilizing your equipment to help the farmers farm and use less resources, whether it's water or conserve soil or nutrients or whatever it is, there's a lot of different challenges out there on the resource side, both on the production of the equipment and the production by our customers. The costs are going to continue to go up on raw materials. Costs go up for operation. So what we have to, one of our challenges, of course, is to develop equipment that helps our customers continue to make a profit, because they're not going to buy our equipment if it doesn't help them make a profit. That's just the reality. Market issues, right? So whether it's a challenge with the need to create to market products that are, whether they're sustainable or green, and the market terms that we use, and we have to back that up with data. It could be access to a market. For example, a foreign market may have barriers to trade like tariffs. They may have regulations that prevent us or require changes in our product in order to bring that product into market. In fact, speaking of regulations, oftentimes right now they're actually outpacing some of the state of the art. So a regulation may actually have some requirements that we can't even meet yet for our equipment. Battery electric, probably being a good example, that it just isn't there for certain markets. But there may be locations that are going to be requiring it. And then there's disruptors, right? So these may not always be a bad thing. They are a challenge, but they're disruptors that are going to really changed the landscape of our industry. Give one example is autonomous, right? So what's an autonomous ag equipment company? Well, companies like mine, Kubota, John Deere, CNH, AGCO, Vermeer, those are ag equipment companies, traditional ag equipment companies, and we're all looking at technology and automation and autonomy and things like that. But there's also a lot of other companies out there now, Gus, now, affiliated with John Deere, AgRobot, EcoRobotics, Rep. There's a whole bunch of companies out there that are developing products like I was talking about earlier. They don't look like a tractor, but they kind of operate like a tractor or a sprayer or something like that. But they're autonomous ag equipment. There's really no denying it. Then there's software companies that are actually getting into putting their software package on a piece of equipment, whether it's an existing tractor or sprayer or something new. Maybe they're developing their own hardware, or maybe they're working with a third party to put their software on a piece of hardware to put it out in the field. Those are autonomous ag equipment companies. Those are disrupting the market and the technologies that are out there. There's even individual farms out there, large farms, especially in the specialty crop industry, that are developing their own products and their own machines, and they're working with these software companies, or they're developing their own software and they're hiring engineers to do this work. So those are examples of a lot of companies that are out there that maybe aren't your traditional ag equipment companies or off-road equipment companies, but they are definitely a player in the industry, and they are influencing the products that everyone is putting out, whether you work for a big company or a small company or a medium-sized company. So how do you take advantage of all of this to advance your own career in this industry? It's your skills and experience that you have to develop, right? So whether you're doing testing or design, you're going to probably need to know some things about electronics. You're going to probably at some point, be influenced by automation or autonomy, whether it's full autonomy or automating a process, or even a particular little component might be automated. You have to know something about it. Thinking about, especially if you're in a company or an industry that has to deal with powertrains or power equipment. What are you going to do? Are you going to use traditional combustion engine? Are you going to do battery electric? Are you going to do hydrogen as a fuel cell? Are you going to do hydrogen for combustion? You're going to use some other alternative fuel? What's the impact of those on your equipment, whether it's fuel systems, hoses, ability to run in the field? How long will it run? How efficient is it? How, the energy density? Maybe it's a hybrid technology. If you're going into whether it's battery electric directly or just use of electricity for parts of your power system, knowing about high voltage systems, knowing about the safety of the high voltage systems. What else do you have to do to make it to be able to put that on the market? Using AI in decision making for your company, or maybe even in the actual equipment itself. Cybersecurity, both to protect yourself, protect your customer, and from a regulatory standpoint. All these regulations they're really impacting business now, even more so than they have in the past. And then speaking of business, you're probably going to be in an international business environment. There's a good chance most companies are trying to sell into an international market. There's a demand for product across the globe. So definitely things to understand and learn about and grow your experience in it. Data, of course, is going to be a big issue in the future as well. And then we really found this out during COVID, but it continues to be a concern, both from a logistics standpoint and also from a regulatory standpoint. The supply chain, understanding your supply chain, your ability to get materials, products, parts, pieces into your product in order to get it out on the market, and then to support it once it's sold. So things that, again, these are not things they probably are going to teach you in college, but things we have to learn as we go through this process within our career, right? There's more, but these are just some examples that I came up with. At this point, and I think well, maybe I should have plenty of time, hopefully, for some questions. But again, I kind of want to wrap up. There's so many things going on right now in our world, and from an innovation standpoint, all the technologies, all the future potential power sources, all the future potential markets for our equipment. It's not always going to be the same traditional stuff we've always seen. So there's a lot of challenges, which makes for a lot of opportunities. And in order to meet those challenges and take advantage of those opportunities, in this industry, we want to continue growing our skill set. Again, it could be powertrain, it could be electronics, it could be software, it could even be full use of AI, or then protecting your company, whether it's cybersecurity or product compliance or whatever. So continuing growing that in your career. And then at this point, I guess I would be happy to answer any questions anybody has, or I'll look at Jana and Darren and say, did I miss anything? Maybe would be my question.
I think you've done a great job. There's a lot here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Don't know whether or not our other folks are thinking, and if they are, maybe I appreciated your insights and really echo about the transcripts and how rarely is that something that would come up. It probably come up maybe after the fact if you're just scratching your head about what someone's able to do and what they claim they're able to do. But perhaps on a related note, though, what kind of impact, if any, social media, as far as what somebody's doing, involved, and so on, as a company, do you guys look into that? Does that have a bearing?
Yeah, a little bit. I don't personally do a deep dive, but I will do a little bit of looking into, like, I use LinkedIn mostly, but if something pops up and it red flagged as a, wow, this person is controversial, right? That's their personal life, but at the same time, it may impact it may influence a decision. Obviously we want, it kind of gets into that soft skills of the ability to work in a team, right? So it's fine, in my opinion, it's fine to do what you want to do on your personal accounts, but if somehow that translates into either creating dissent within a team, or maybe just as importantly, and this is partly because of the job that I do now, is if you're posting dangerous things, for example, or have a tendency to post those things, then it's probably gonna it could have some impact on our product, our corporate liability. So things that, again, maybe people don't think about until they've been in a job for a while, is the things you do. If somehow you're affiliated, somehow tied to your company, it can impact the company as well, even if it's mostly personal. That's a very not a very good way to say it, but I don't know how to say it without being a little more explicit on basically, if you post bad behavior, especially if it's somehow affiliated with the company, then the company gets impacted by it.
Travis, I have a question. Is there a class or a skill that you wished you had honed earlier that would have made your professional development easier?
Most of the things that I've learned on the job, I don't know that anybody's ever created a class for them. Certainly project management and time management would have been more helpful. That's something I feel like I can always work on. And especially as you grow in your career and you gain more responsibilities, it becomes even more important. The other one would probably be it as an engineer, and very much in some ways a stereotypical engineering personality. It would be communicating with non-engineers. I think would be very, very helpful. In particular, marketing type people. But again, that's going to be dependent on what you want to do with your career. If you want to get into a corporate environment, then that's very important. Maybe it's less so for people who want to go to grad school or do, I mean, even if you're a consultant, right, you still have to communicate with your customers and really understand customer requirements, which really is what we're doing with product marketing. Is we're trying to understand their requirements and the customer requirements. So communication with non-engineers would actually probably be a useful thing. It's a useful skill set. Whether there's such a class or not that's effective, I don't know.
Thanks. No, good point.
Garrett, I see that you unmuted, but I can't hear anything. Are you asking a question? And if so, maybe you can type in the chat.
I don't see any chats coming through, but Garrett, if you have a question and you want to type it up. It's not a question I have so much as just I really appreciate the way you frame disruption as a challenge to be met rather than, it's so easy in our day-to-day work lives to like any new technology, any new program, any new staff ideas. It's so easy to see that as disruptive and a problem rather than a challenge that we can meet and different ways we need to try to meet those challenges. And I appreciate that you bringing that up as a mindset change because we all deal with that regardless of industry.
Yeah. Disruptors. The examples I gave are definitely in our industry, but that could be technologies, right? Social media being one. It's definitely changed the way we view the world and the way the world views us, and and then you think about AI and a lot of these other things. They're at first we kind of go, oh man, this is really going to cause a problem for us, and then all of a sudden you go, oh wait, maybe we can take advantage of this. Yeah. All right, yeah, so how would you go about it? So Garrett, to answer your question, there's a lot of ways, right? So trade shows are one way. You go to a trade show and you start to see what your competition is doing. I found that's very useful even for our engineers, or trade shows sometimes are geared towards customers or marketing people or something like that, but a lot of times our engineers go and they learn about those as well. So taking advantage of that, going to a trade show and going, okay, I'm not just here to scope out the competition and see what they're doing, but also to learn about other things like suppliers or somebody who's got something that's completely unrelated. How can I translate that to my product, right? The other thing, of course, would be there's continuing education. So within organizations like ASABE, or perhaps independently through your own company, they might have a contract for continuing education. We will go out to a third party sometimes and go, hey, we want to learn about this technology or this type of product that's going to help us with our future development, or even a tool, for example, to help us with future development, even if it itself isn't going to go on the product, but it helps us develop our products better, faster, whether, it's been around for a while, but rapid prototyping, right? So that when that was first sort of becoming in vogue in the industry, people would go out and learn how to use it to help them 3D print rapid parts for prototyping, so they didn't have nearly the long development costs to set up tool and die and make a limited run or castings or whatever it is. So, or getting things machined, then you just print them out basically to spec and pop them out, try them, fit them up, then you make a metal part, something like that. So there's a lot of ways to go out there and learn about new technologies, new tools. Obviously online. And again, that, I talked earlier in the presentation about the network. Growing your network is important because, again, somebody that might not be in direct competition with you, but they actually might be working for a supplier that's doing something new and innovative that you can use. I'll throw an example out there. We have there's a very active ASABE member, Wyatt Hall, who works for Danfoss. And so if I wanted to know about, what's the new things going on in hydraulics and control systems and electronics that Danfoss is providing as a supplier, because I know him, I can go out and talk to him. He might be asked to do a webinar like this, new trends and technologies in control systems for components. So staying up to date on webinars, trends, conferences, educational seminars, things like that would be where I would go for learning about new things and new possibilities. I hope that answered your question.
That did, if you guys can hear me now. But
yes, yep, yeah.
I had another follow-up question. So my end goal is always to be like within the design engineering position.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of started out with like working in manufacturing, test engineering, quality. My kind of thought process was I can learn all the different things to know within these departments, and then that would make me a more competent design engineer.
Yes.
Is there a way that you would think or try to think about your positions to know when you've reached the limit of what you need or what is available in those positions to know for a design position?
It's a really good question. I don't know if there's I guess it's going to depend on the product and the project and the company, but I would say when you feel like you're really comfortable with knowing all like for your example, where you're at now, if you're really comfortable with the current products and have a really good understanding of it, and then you talk to whoever's in charge of new product development, if that's what you want to get into, the design portion, find out from them, what other things do I need to know, right? If I wanted to come work for the design engineering manager and say, I want to be a design engineer, what else do I need to know? Here's what I do know. Here, I'm very familiar with all the parts and products that go on this piece of equipment, and here's our manufacturing processes so that I understand, showing them, telling them what you do know, and then say, okay, what else do I need to know in order to come work for you if I wanted to do that? And then that'd probably be the biggest thing, understanding what their needs are and then working to develop that. Some companies offer, so they might call it job shadowing, they might call it co-working, or there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it, but you might actually be able, or mentoring, right? So you might actually be able to work with a design engineer in your company, either part-time or temporarily, and learn some of the things that they're doing and their skill set. And really that goes for any sort of, I really think it's important in any job to have a little bit of cross-functional exposure anyway, whether it's design engineering, testing, quality, manufacturing, marketing, legal, any of it, just you get some exposure to these other parts of the company, and it's going to make you more valuable in whatever role you're going to take on.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay. Sarah, is there anything else you need from
I
me
think
on
that's
this?
it. Thanks so much for your
Okay.
time, Travis.
Yep.
We'll record this session and post it on YouTube so we can share that link with anybody who can join us today. But thanks so much. We really appreciate your expertise and the conversation through questions after.
Good. I hope it was helpful.
Very much. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Travis.
Great insights, Travis. Thank you.
Very welcome.
Have a nice rest of your day.
All right. You as well. Bye.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.